Good morning, and we are today. This is already mid-June 2025, and the year is escaping from our hands. But if you are a proactive person, a woman that is a visionary, then this conversation will be for you because today we are with Shannon Swales, and she is I will say, a young psychologist in Queensland, based in Queensland. And we have met through the virtual world of connections. So I wanted to say thank you for being here with us, all of you out there as well, tuning into this episode with Shannon, and we will be talking some interesting points about perimenopause, even though this is not related totally to mindset topic that I normally bring to my audience. It is quite important to understand that there is nothing wrong with us going through that stage. And Shannon will be able to explain this a little bit more. So, Shannon, welcome to Remarkable Conversations with Maria Semple. It is an honor to have you here with us and connecting so deeply with you. In a previous conversation, one-on-one with you, I felt like you were like a sister from a different world, from a different era, a different mother, but it was our soul together joined there. I want you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Well, hi, Maria, and hi to everyone out there. I thank you for reaching out and introducing yourself and us having this connection. This is what I love about the work that I do now is the connections I make and the wonderful people, mostly women that I meet all over the world. So it's a privilege to be here. So thank you. I always say I find it hard to introduce myself. Because part of me doesn't like to lead with what I do, but often I'm coming and talking to what I do for a living because I know it doesn't define who I, I'm not defined by what I do, but my profession, as you mentioned, I am a registered psychologist. I'm actually registered clinical psychologist, but psychologist will do. I am an enthusiast of human behavior, and I think from a young age, I was really curious, but didn't have obviously the knowledge or wisdom or guidance in really understanding it to the depths that I was experiencing it. So it's kind of a natural occurrence that I went into psychology, but it took my own uh, early life mental health issues to make my road into psychology. Which is funny. That's how I've landed, or interesting. That's how I've landed in the midlife women space, is my own mental health issues in my early midlife 5 years ago. So it's kind of a pattern of mine that my interest areas of what I do stem from my own personal life and my interest just naturally as a human being and a human being going through mental health struggles, which is common, a lot of us do, but certainly a common part of my history. So, yeah. But other than that, I'm a doggy mama. I've got two Earthside, one who passed on, my adorable Cassie, and my Hannah and Toby, and I'm a wife, the long-term partner, and I love to travel. But I think we've talked about that, but I think my travel also stems to I like to travel deep inside myself. Like I think the nomad comes from exploration of me and also then those I work with and the area in which I work in, wanting to explore that deeply. So, and that's where I'm a midlife woman now going through perimenopause. So that's what I'm deep diving into. And that's what I'm hoping and do help women out with.
That's wonderful. And you touch on so many points here. And thank you, because one of the first thing you said, no, what I do is not totally what I am, but I work in this field. And it's so important because our identity is so revealed with what we do, that we say I'm an engineer, I'm a coach, and I'm a
Mm.
mother, and we are much more than that. And some of us do it unconsciously when we say that. And you touch on mental health which we all have been taught in one way or another. And it is actually, I feel, and maybe you too, that has a stigma in our society about mental health. And then we find it difficult, many of us, to reach out or even to declare it that I suffer and I have experienced anxiety and grief and trauma and all these other things. But it's so hard, it's that stigma. So
Mm.
I would like us to dive deep into these questions that I want to explore together with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I'm here for. Not for conversation.
Definitely. Well, because our audience is so is going to be so enriched by these answers, these conversations, these insight. Your turning point when we first spoke a few weeks ago, we you mentioned a turning point in 2021, and that was very pivotal for you. And I
Yeah,
would like you to share more about what led you to recognize your own burnt out and
yeah.
what gave you the courage to step back and reimagine your life and work as it is now.
Yeah, no, such a rich question. And I did ponder on this because I'm like, yeah, what really were the ingredients? Because it was such a horrific time, just full of anxiety, lost, trapped for probably a good year. Um, but I think the things that really stood out for me as I suppose those pivotal turning moments was that I started to lose my care for my clients. Like I was still acting, but it felt like I was acting. I was acting. I wasn't. The connection was no longer there, and that wasn't okay with me. I was really noticing that there at the end. When I say the end, the day that I turned up to work and didn't go back again, because that was, I suppose, the turning point. That wasn't expected, by the way. I expected to go in and talk to my director and start to reduce my workload and possibly finish up in a few months, but I wasn't sure. But it ended up being that I didn't turn up, then that I stopped straight away. But there was also what gave me the courage, because that's a really important question that I think is important for the viewers as well. Because I what gave me the courage was two incredible women. One was my supervisor, who I had started seeing probably a year and a bit before, someone I knew in the psychology circles and someone I really wanted to work with because of her skill level. But what I didn't know is that I needed her skill level and her humanness because she practices supervision by looking after the therapist in the therapist chair. So she was very much, she could see I was suffering and she gently, gently helped me to see it and to make moves to look after me. And that was such a slow and gentle process. But she was the woman who really sent me on the transitional pathway. And then it was the director of the place that I worked at, another incredible, compassionate woman who said, gave me permission basically to stop. So you don't need to be here tomorrow. We will look after your clients. We'll look after you. It's okay.
Mm.
So I know that courage comes from not just within, but people who come alongside you and you still have to do the walking, but they do the holding.
Oh,
Mm,
that is so great that you found their support. And yes, we never stand alone. We have, and our self-awareness, your self-awareness came from that work that you were doing prior to that turning point
mm,
with your supervisor.
mm,
And and your director to say, I have a responsibility towards this woman, this
mm.
employee, and she,
Well,
yeah.
she actually is because I was a sole contractor. It was one of those weird, well, not weird.
Mm.
In psychology, you often work at a group practice, but you don't work for them. You work as a anyway. But she and I was very blessed because a lot of people in positions of power don't necessarily act in this way. But I purposely
Right.
went to work there because I knew herself and her ex business partner. I knew them as people and I trusted them, and I knew being in a safe working environment, if anything went down, was important. So I'm grateful to my past self for putting myself in that beautiful working space, because when things were down, when I was burnt out, she took care. She went beyond her role, went beyond. She didn't need to do what she did. She was a human. She treated me as a human, human together. Yeah, she was amazing. Mm.
And once again, you have offered us so much to unpack because the world of being a contractor is sometimes viewed as a sole operator. And for you to have investigated their values
Mm.
and have that desire to work for them, it's and with them, it's kudos to you, to your courage and your determination. But I have a second question, as I also value your time in your clinical work, and your midlife reclaim community. You have a community now. You
Mm.
hold space for women navigating burnout.
Mm.
And obviously, your journey is amazing testimony. So, what patterns or themes do you see emerging for women in midlife? And how do you help them begin the process of reconnection, just as you went through?
Yeah, it's such a complicated question. I mean, a
Oh,
complicated answer.
sorry.
Oh, no. It's a good question. It's a very important question. I suppose I just wanted to be real. I'm always being real. I'm trying to be real, authentic. Is that every person's midlife burnout, overwhelmed, stressed out experience is going to be unique to them, and therefore their pathway out is unique. But there are some crossovers and patterns that we do see, that I do see, particularly, yeah, in women in midlife, because I have worked with women in other eras of their life. I've worked with men as well, but mostly women midlife, because I think because I'm a woman in midlife, so they come to me and that program, but I also do one-on-one. Um, One of the patterns that I see, and I'm just going to use a framework that they call it the three flows of compassion, that comes from compassion focused therapy, and
Sure.
that we require these flows of compassion as part of our well-being, and obviously will then help our health. So this is compassion outwards. So our empathy, our sympathy, our sensitivity, our care actions for others, that kind of compassion outwards. And women, particularly in midlife, have many roles, that whether professionally or personally, as a parent, caregiver, most of the roles that we take professionally, like teacher, nurse, allied health professionals, tend to be yeah, caregiving. So there's a lot of compassion flow outwards, which is a great thing. It's not a bad thing. But there's two other flows. There's the flow of compassion in from self to self, so how we show up for ourselves, how we talk
Mm,
to ourselves mentally, how we act towards ourselves when we're doing well, but also when we're not. And there's also the compassion in that we bring in from others around us. So
mhm,
allowing that in, or being in those environments that have some of those qualities. And what we tend to find is that women have a lot of flow going out, and by midlife, they've had an overextended flow of out.
mhm,
And they might be in environments that the compassion is lacking, or maybe the opposite. And their self environment can be quite critical, because there's
mhm,
a lot of that, I call it misplaced guilt. When we start to, if we look after ourselves, we then feel guilt because, oh, we should be doing XYZ for our children, our colleagues, our clients, our business. It's almost like allowing care in from ourselves or others is a bad thing. So we feel this guilt. Or so, yeah, I'm often working with women or not first and foremost. Often there's other things that come first, but working on where their flows are at and how they can start to allow those other flows in, because that's paramount to their health and well-being, particularly in midlife when our hormonal stuff is happening.
it's a
But
cocktail.
it's paramount all throughout life. So that's a big one. That's a big fundamental one that I'm working on. There's many others, but that's one. Hmm.
Right. Well, you touch so much on that flaw of compassion, because women are in their DNA are they're the gatherers and doing things for others, and cultural expectations, it brings us sometimes to feel guilty when we hold that space for ourselves. And
Mm.
then you identify the midlife point when our hormones are mixing completely. It's a I wouldn't call it a deadly cocktail, but it's certainly a cocktail
Yeah.
there that it mixes and uh, messes with your thinking, with your self-image, with your confidence, and it can just go and bring you down completely. So I think having your clinical experience and holding space as it was held for you for
Mhm.
these women is quite important, but
I agree.
taking them deeper as well, that is just not only one thing,
Mm.
is many things. And you touch on that. I think what it came to me was the perception and projection. As therapist, and I'm not a therapist, but I have done some therapeutic work. It's my Spanglish coming out.
Doing well. I have only one language.
And so I think we perceive that we are responsible for the client. So holding that compassion to ourselves is so important. And it's a very fine line. And thank you for touching on that.
Mm.
The next question I want to ask you, Shannon, is you integrate modalities, and perhaps you touch a little bit on these, like ACT, and you can give us all the full words for these acronyms, and CFT, a mindfulness in your approach, which is wonderful. How have these shaped your own recovery and the way that now you support others through burnt out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They shaped my recovery so fundamentally. I was very lucky that ACT, which stands for Acceptance Commitment Therapy, which is a mindfulness-based therapy, I like to say. I had been practicing and utilizing that on myself for some time. So when I was really unwell and stopped working, I was able to really utilize those skills quite readily. So ACT is really, I think, sort of fundamental in helping us deal with our humanness, because ACT teaches us how to deal with our feelings, even the ones we don't like, the ones we find difficult to express. ACT gives us the tools to be able to be with that human side, because it is important to notice and express our feelings in ways that help them. It also teaches you how to deal with your thoughts. So I'm very much, when I'm suffering, my mind is really busy and it's not on the good things. So ACT gives you the tools to deal with your thinking mind in a helpful way again. And
Mm,
what I absolutely love with ACT, which helped me in this very turbulent time, was I feel like it gives you the anchor, because it's also a value-based therapy. So it's about identifying, it's almost like identifying your why, identifying your what's meaningful, what's rich, what's
mm,
important for you right now. And knowing that about ACT and knowing that that's a fundamental skill, in that moment of no longer working, which was my identity back then, and I felt like a crap person, and who am I and what am I doing and contributing to the world and my family and blah, blah, blah. I was able to identify with that ACT that my value right now is caring for myself so I can care for my family eventually again. My value here is to look after me in order to look after others again. So I found value in, I suppose, bringing that care in, but that was my value point. Go to therapy. I kept a journal. I did what I needed to recover,
mm,
but that was my job. And that was how I was helping other people. So I think ACT gave me the tools to find my way through that very turbulent time.
mm,
And CFT, which I was sort of brand new to before I got unwell. Um, but I decided to devote some time to really not learning those skills, but more applying them to me. So, this lovely local psychologist here in Brisbane, Dr. Stan Steindl, had just written a book on self compassion. So, it was about the flow in, and I knew I needed to work on that. And it was based on CFT because he's a CFT therapist. So, I grabbed his book, and it's a workbook as well as a book. And I
Mm.
focused on that, and it was helping me really realize my relationship with those three flows because I had to work on allowing help in too because I was, as I call it, toxically independent. So I had people who were willing and able to provide help, but I never let it in unless they were a professional therapist. I always went and saw a therapist, but I would never let my personal or professional colleagues in. So I had to learn, I chose to learn to, yeah, work on that. So Stan's work really helped there. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And I I mean, right now I'm just holding this space to absorb all the comments that you have given us from
Mm,
your experience, and that having identified the value that will carry you through the day. Like
mm,
I'm having compassion for myself.
mm.
I am getting out of bed, I am
Yeah.
taking a shower, I am eating. All these slow steps to
Yeah.
hold that mindfulness and compassion when we're going through this state of
Mm,
mental challenges. I
mm,
had been there. I've been lucky
mm,
to have a great psychologist at the time, and very fortunate that there were no ruminations that were life-threatening in my own life, but they were like,
yeah.
blaming yourself in
Yeah.
many cases,
Mm,
particularly when you go through relationship issues and you keep blaming yourself, thinking, perhaps I should have done this, I should have done that, and ruminate on these type of things. But
mm,
when relationships come to a break, there is an enormous grief. And then it's when negative emotions set in, guilt, fear,
mm, mm,
um, all these other negative emotions that form a lot of vicious circle and patterns. So
mm,
thank you for
mm.
sharing
Oh,
this, and the workbook that you're talking about from the Brisbane
yeah.
psychologist.
Yeah.
Make sure that you give us the name so that I can put it in the
I
notes.
just I just remembered it because I my perimenopausal brain forgot. But it's called The Gifts of Compassion. I just remember, yeah, The Gifts of Compassion, which I love the name of it. I had worked with Stan before. He was a trainer and of mine in another therapy. And yeah, anyway, I thought the name of the book because it truly is a gift, one to give out to others, compassion, as a mother, as a psych, as a human being in this world, which, as you correctly said, we women are more geared towards that nurturing type. But the importance of that gift flowing back in as well, even for the mother, even for the caregiver, because it's what allows her to do her role. Yeah. I was about to say better, no, but just in a more way in which, especially in this modern world, especially in the modern world with all the expectations, as you mentioned, that are really unrealistic and toxic, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of them on women. That yeah, in
Yeah.
order to yeah.
And,
Mm,
and sometimes those expectations, I see it from the clients that I work with. There are cultural expectations, and we enforce them. We don't let them
mm,
go because identities, values, limiting beliefs
yeah.
take precedent and place a huge place in that impositions. But
Mm,
you wear many, many hats, not only your clinical psychologist hat, you're also a writer, a
mhm,
podcast host too. How do these
mm,
creative expressions complement your therapeutic work.
Mm.
And what have they taught you about burnt out and recovery? And perhaps you touch a little bit more, but this is from the point of view of your creative
Mm.
outlets and many hats that you wear.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I do have many hats, but it feels like one. Anyway, I don't know.
Of
That's something
course.
to unpack later. Uh, I suppose the first thing that comes to mind with answering this question is just how valuable creativity is to well-being. And it was something missing in my life for 20 plus years because I was very much a creative kid, and that was nurtured somewhat in my educational space. But I say somewhat because I grew up in the era in the 80s, 90s. I'm a Gen X baby
Beautiful.
that I think I'm a younger one. Apparently, we get called Xennials because we're like, and I identify as Gen X, but I it wasn't valued as a career path. And in my family system, career path and educational system that I went into, it was very much, what are you going to do for a living? What are you going to do? And any creative thing was just, that's just for hobbies. That's just for fun. So with getting this message, and I know it came from a good place, they wanted us to survive and thrive in this world. And
Yeah.
that's what they thought.
Kick goals.
Um, but for me, and not for me, like we just know health wise, it's the scientific evidence is there. Creativity is essential, and creativity is, in everything. But I did lose it. It wasn't involved in any way in what I was doing. And because what I was doing was taking up most of my time, because I'm not a parent, there's not, my outside world was very limited. Everything was going into my work. So I've just realized through my recovery that that was something I needed to recover and bring back in some ways, that creativity needed to be a value that I continued to act on. So it's not that that's not why I set out to do the podcast or to write. There are other reasons for that. But like I've kept always in mind, what am I doing creatively? Um, because I know that supports my well-being. And I know as a human being, I love it. I love when I'm being creative. It feels explorative. It feels non-goal orientated. Like it's not about achieving anything. It's just about being and doing and playing. And so, yeah, I might have gone off track there, but that's creativity. And
No,
that's why I continue to write. That's why I continue to do the podcast, because I think there's creativity in that. Like just even in the conversations that come up and ideas spark, just where I take the podcast, where I take my writing, even just where I take the services I provide. Like I created the community, and that's relatively new. It's only this last year that I created the Midlife Reclaimed community. Before that, I was focusing just on the one-on-one work. And there's creativity in that too. What you create for the client, because every client's unique. So I don't do the same thing with every client. So it's just, yeah, I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but that's where I'm at.
well, yes, yes, of course you have, because you touch on that, it's not only your psychologist hat, but also that you applied creativity and then your outlet, and you gave us that initiation, why it was introduced within your educational system, and
Mm,
perhaps the newer generations, because I am a baby boomer, and so in that era, maybe
mm,
creativity was not
mm,
as held in a space where it was embraced.
mm.
So great for the newer generations.
I
It
hope so.
has been more embraced. And
Mm,
that gave you that outlet of podcasts, conversations, that
mm.
creative part of thinking, what would this person like to talk? It's like
Yeah.
what you and I have done. We first
Mm,
met to identify and get to know each other from that deeper place. And that
mm.
is creativity.
I
I
agree.
know that I am a creative being and that well, thank you. You reinforce it. You apply that creativity with your clients because you approach them
Mm,
individually, even though I hold a program that it's call a method. So it has some regular
Mm,
steps and patterns, but you
mm.
can't, it's not a cookie cutter
Yeah,
either. So
yeah.
you hold that space for creativity, innovation, and and I guess that our brain seeks that urge of dopamine that comes with creativity. And as a
Yeah.
psychologist, you will have found these so much that sometimes I say to my clients, please hold the same idea for 30 days and see what happens. Because
Mm.
it is so easy to jump from one thing to the next when we have a creative brain. Do you find that?
Um, I don't, but yeah, it made me think of neurodivergent brains, like women that I work with who have been diagnosed or suspect that they're ADHD, that it
Mm-hmm.
can be, but they can also fixate on something they're really interested in, get hyper focused. But like regardless of neurotype, yeah, some people can jump around, other people might be able to fixate or stay. I suppose it just depends if it's functional or not for them. Anyway, yeah, for
Yeah.
me, I can get quite fixated and I'll stay on something. People describe me as you're really determined. Once you set your mind to something, you just do it. And I've always been that way. It's always seems to be in the study and the work world. Not so much I jump around when it comes to my personal life. I don't. Besides my relationship with my husband, which has been since I was 16, that
Wow.
we've been together forever. But it's been a roller coaster like every relationship. But we stayed together through that period. But yeah, it's everything else is a little bit topsy-turvy. So yeah, but anyway, I don't know why that is. It just is.
Very human
Mm.
exchange of your thoughts and your personal experience because yes, it
Well,
is
coming
not
back,
easy.
uh,
Yes, coming back,
just
yeah, say.
oh, just what you said earlier about the stigma associated with mental health and talking out about, or just that's a thing and it stops a lot of us talking about it. It's why I share so much these days, and sometimes I think I overshare. I want to, just allow or give that indirect permission to everyone just to be yourself. And if you're struggling to, or even if you're not, this is just how you think and what you do, that is welcome here. And because it's better to be ourselves because it's less effort. But it's so hard to be ourselves when we maybe see that aspect of ourselves, that mental health issue or whatever it might be, as not okay. But yeah, it's so important. So that's why I tend to just let my stuff.
Elaborate. That's a beautiful quality that you have within yourself and you extend it by making it very real. I always also share a lot of my journey, my personal life, and being a migrant to Australia. And I share, and my marriage ended when I was still kind of like less than 15 years of being a migrant in the country that are still getting my head around things, and the marriage ended, and it makes it real. And also, I don't have to make up other stories. They always come back to that root of authenticity, that life is not perfect. It takes two different roads. It's through being determined and having self-compassion and seeking
Mm,
help, etc., that our journey here is bringing us to a different
mm,
dimension and different work.
100%, yeah.
So my work and my life is work in progress every day.
Yeah,
And
mine
I
too.
want it to be like that until my last breath, because it's how I become a greater and a better human person, and not only
Yeah.
compassion for myself, but for my clients and the world out there.
Yeah.
Well, I have a last question, and I have thoroughly enjoyed and got so many insights this, but I work with women as well, and for women who feel like there is nothing left to give.
Mm,
And what gentle first step would you recommend for these women?
mm,
And what do you wish more of us will knew about midlife?
mm. Yeah, what that first part, what gentle step?
Mm-hmm.
What comes to me just straight away and more of a heart space rather than my head is nature. Uh, I think with gentle steps towards nature, whether that might be maybe you're already doing a walk with your dog or maybe your commute or but taking a moment to connect with nature.
Mm.
Someone said to me once, and it was really beautiful. She said in her healing, because she went through burnout multiple times throughout her life, once in midlife or twice in midlife, she's still in her midlife era. She said, nature doesn't talk back. nature, nature holds space for us if we choose to be with it. And I mean really be with it. So you take a
Beautiful.
pause, really consciously connect, use your eyes, use your smell, use your
Mm.
touch. Like I reach out, I
Mm.
don't care now. I did care a little bit, people thinking I might be weird, but I'll reach out and touch a leaf. I'll sit down in the middle of the dog park and and not do snow angels because I'll end up all grass angels, like, but I just connect with the earth, with nature in some ways. It might be swimming, maybe you go to your favorite swim hole, or maybe you draw a bath and you're with nature in the water. But like, it's such a gentle space that is available to most of us. Even if you live in suburbia and there's cement everywhere, your plants, if you have some plants or if you have a bit of grass, just wherever the space is, immerse yourself into it. That's one of the things that was part of, especially when I stopped working. One of the things I told myself to do daily, I was doing walks with my dogs anyway, but was to be in the nature space and spend some time in it and really immerse in it. So healing. Yeah, because she
Mm.
does help. She's amazing if you spend some time with her. So that'd be my big call. Mm.
I love that.
And I
So,
forgot the second half of the
yes,
question.
the second question was, what do you wish more of us knew about healing in midlife? Because it comes, and you're totally unaware. I was in my possibly late 30s, early
Mm,
40s when I really thought something wrong was with happening to me and with me, and but wow, I want
yeah.
people to
I
know and understand women that
yeah.
there is something, a chemical
Well, I
spell.
mean, yeah, I mean, essentially, a very complicated process put simply, in terms of perimenopause, menopause, that can start anywhere from 35 and, up to it can be a 10-year period of then going into post-menopause. But like our body, mind, spirit, everything's going through a shift due to those biological changes, moving from a woman with abilities to reproduce to a woman, your brain, the whole system is rewiring because you're
Mm.
no longer wired to reproduce. You're now wired to, which I love this. This is a piece of knowledge that I've given. You're now wired to be the grandmothers of the community, whether you had kids or not. I didn't have kids, just got the furry kind. I never reproduced, never even tried. It was a conscious choice of not having children. But I think, yeah, we become the grandmothers of the community. Like we have evolved, evolution has evolved where it's allowed, or well, allowed, like, evolutionary wise, women role was and men role to reproduce, but we were to carry and raise the babies. And now we're living long enough where our system shuts down the reproduce, but still we live longer. We live longer than men. So what's our role? Our role is grandmothers. We give back the wisdom to the generations. So our brain, this is the thing I want midlife to remember, when you're noticing those changes and get education, the great thing is we're talking about it now. There are so many
Mm.
wonderful knowledge base out there on what is perimenopause, what are the signs, what does it look like?
Mm.
Go educate yourself. It's out there. Um, but that, yeah, that this very normal journey, it's not a medical condition. It is just a
Mm-hmm.
normal journey you're going through. There is help to help that journey, but you are
Mm.
rewiring to become the wise woman that you
Mm.
are.
I love it.
And I know it's like you're going to, and in some cultures they call it the crone as well. Like that sounds horrible, but the crone is the wise woman. She is sharing the wisdom she has to the next generation, to the people around her.
Mm.
And there's so many women I notice in midlife that they're yearning that. unconsciously yearning that role, and but not quite, they're moving from that. Maybe they're still a mum, they're still raising their children, their flock, they're still, but they're in that transition, they're evolving. So that's what I want them to know. This is actually a reckoning, this is a transition, it's actually a really beautiful time. And
Wow.
it sucks as well, like, because perimenopause is a bitch. Like, I've had my moments, I'm on treatment now that's really helping, but I'm looking at changing that because I don't think it's helping as much as it used to. But we're lucky to be women of this age where there is a lot more options, but still the medical industry is not necessarily as well equipped yet to give us that information. But go online, there's lots out there. Anyway, I
Yeah,
digress. It's such an
no,
important area.
I think it is a great topic to introduce because I believe for the research that also I have done that 20 years ago when I went through this perimenopause, the stigma around HRT and research was much less than what we have now. And our GPs are seeing the female GPs that I've seen uh, feel more compassionate to and open to see all your history and as an individual human being rather than another patient and
Yeah.
prescribe drugs of HRT or hormones that will help through different stages. And I share openly with you in our conversation that after nearly 20 years of
Mm,
fully menopausal, I have decided to go on a hormone replacement therapy to help with a lot of other symptoms and consequences that I
yeah.
won't go through it today. But I
Yeah.
love that you touch on the wiser woman and how we can fall in love with that stage. And
Mm,
it made me reflect on something that perhaps I want to share.
mm.
Uh, and sometimes we teach what we need to learn. You possibly have found that for your own
So
career.
true.
And so I am a migrant. I came here with two sons, and they're very, very independent. And so I have only one grandchild. My eldest boy didn't have children,
Mm,
and my youngest boy is not married to the mother of my granddaughter.
mm,
And but I have a grandchild, and she knows who is her dad, and that I
mm,
am her abuela, and all that. So I think choosing this community of women to
mm,
embrace in now through coaching for the last
mm,
17 years, it sort of helps me to embrace that wider community that we are geared in our DNA to have
mm,
and unconsciously bringing it together through that wisdom and also the openness to receive
mm,
what I didn't receive in my younger years because I was deprived of family support
mm.
while being in Australia since my late
Mm.
20s. So that came to me as you were talking.
Yeah. Wow. Like, yeah, so much wisdom within that. Thank you for sharing. Because it made me think, if I was hearing you right too, with that community that you have too, that and what you were saying about we gravitate towards what we need or something like that,
Yes,
made me
our
think,
pain is
yeah,
connected to a purpose.
yeah, like that the reason why I find myself here and creating community with midlife women, with being a midlife woman who has been burnt out, hopefully never will be again, but still going through, the this midlife season. And yeah, and I've always craved community and connection, but always found it tricky. So yeah, I've never found social like situations that easy, but have done so in the space that I work, because it's very different. I'm a therapist, not a friend, but yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting. I do find
Yes,
myself
it
here
is.
because I created the community that I didn't have. Because if I think about it too, I was very, very blessed to have and still have a family and local, like not local, local, but in the same country, not very far away. and accessible and willing. I could always rock up back home, and I did several times as an adult. Always welcome home. So having family was always around. But I suppose what I ended up going into psychology because whilst my family is definitely a unit of safety and that I can go to, they didn't understand mental, emotional, and I am a very deep thinker, deep feeler, and
Mm.
experience things deeply. And they didn't know how to deal with a child like
Mm.
that, and that's okay. That's they didn't have the skills either, and um, but yeah, I went the psychology direction. I really think subconsciously to find not just the skills and strategy, but the community that gets me. Because I often find fellow psychologists, fellow coaches, therapists, fellow midlife women who've done this journey, have worked on themselves. They are those people, and so found my community within what I do. Yeah.
That's
Mm.
beautiful. And once again, you touch on so many points because when we become migrants, then we feel one foot in one country and one foot in another country. And sometimes we experience that, oh, my family back there are not getting me because we change. We change. And
Oh,
that realization that the
yeah.
new life, the new adjustments, even though it might not be coming from a developing world needs, the of safety and security,
Mm,
basic needs, but other needs that come and it changes us from the
mm,
inside out. And then when we like I expressed it for myself, I found that I was closer to friends here than what I was to my sisters back home
mm,
because of that connection and living experience that we live as migrants, even though if they were Latinas or if they were Australian. So it was a deep connection because I thought,
mm.
this woman gets me. Well,
Yeah.
because our world change, our world
Yeah.
change, and our view
Yeah.
changes. Well, their world over
Stays.
there in the old country stays the same. You are the one that is removed, and you have to
Yeah.
adjust and adopt. So
Wow.
this realization is so deep as well when
Mm.
working with
Wow.
cross-cultural, as I
Yes.
am doing now, and bringing the Latinas in to my work, and the method that I applied is sometimes even crossing cultural boundaries back and forth when my identity is being I am Latina, but I am
Mm.
very much an Australian woman. And I
Mm.
wanted to
Mm.
embrace that. So it's been an amazing
Yeah.
journey. And I think the most important is building this community, these relationships with
Mm.
women like yourself, that if I ever have the need to refer one of my clients to you, I can
And vice
honestly
versa.
put them
Mm.
in good hands because you
Mm.
do amazing work as well with them because I am more future focused rather than the therapeutic space that you need to hold. And my compassion as well, it has to be a duty of care as we have.
Oh, yes. Mm.
Well,
Mm.
thank you so much
Oh,
for this wonderful conversation.
thank you.
Your last words, your last insights.
Oh, one that I shared actually recently on another interview just came up spontaneously, but it was that yourself is non-negotiable. And just what I mean by that is you are your biggest resource. We're with ourselves from birth to death. And hopefully we meet wonderful and have wonderful connections along the way to ourselves, others, and the world. But we are truly with ourselves. So it's something I live by now. That I'm just non-negotiable, which just means that I always can, well, I try, I'm not perfect, no one is. I always bring myself to the table. Where is my energy at? What do I need? Okay, that person that I'm speaking with or that needs something, what do they need? What do they want? But I'm on the negotiable, I'm on the table. Like what I mean by non-negotiable is I'm no longer going to treat myself like that because I used to just abandon her. Like I just forgot that she mattered, It was like, oh, she might have mattered when I went to the gym, but that was just to lose weight. So even then, that wasn't something for myself that was something to do because I should, because I need to look like size whatever. I don't do that anymore. But anyway, that's what I mean by non-negotiable. I just mean that we consider ourselves as much as we can, even if we're having to look after our 1-year-old and we're up at night or whatever it is, but and we're not able to do any self-care, which is fine, but we can mentally go, hey, girl, this is tough, isn't it? That's considering ourselves like, oh my God, but look at her cute little eyes. Or but we're in there. That's what I mean by non-negotiable. We're just in there somewhere, and we can do that even when our world requires us to be 100% there for a dependent living being like a baby. Like we can still go, hey girl, this is tough. This is harder than we thought.
Indeed.
This is brilliant, or both, whatever.
Awesome. Well, I have enjoyed very much. Thank you once again for your insights, sharing all these deep sides of yourself
I
from
am.
so authentically. I love it, and I'm sure our audience tapping into this conversation will find it as well enriching.
Oh,
So thank you
thank you.
so much. I will stop
Thank
it
you,
there.
Maria. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.